the Communist Party. The inventor of the Communist Party was not Marx, it was Lenin. Marx developed the doctrines of class warfare and the triumph of the proletarian class, but he was content to leave this to the operation of the forces of history, believing that the productive processes set in motion a train of events leading to inevitable proletarian victory. Lenin became the disciple of Marx, who formed the Communist Party to translate the ideas of Marx into reality. Lenin was born of middle-class Russian parents. He was a very brilliant student. Russia had a long tradition of revolution, though Marxism was relatively new within Russia. Lenin's older brother was engaged in a plot to assassinate the Tsar, was arrested and executed, and bitterness and hatred of the Tsarist authority entered into the heart and mind of the young Lenin. He identified himself with the new revolutionary movement within Russia, Marxism, which concentrated on the prime role to be played in the revolution by the workers in the cities rather than the peasants on the farms. He became a member of the Marxists. However, he conceived the idea that the revolution should not be spontaneous, but that a party of professional revolutionary soldiers should be formed, and that this party should become the instrument of history leading to the overthrow of the established capitalist system and the institution of dictatorship. He attended a congress of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party that was held in Brussels, Belgium. The Russian Social Democratic Labour Party was the Marxist party created in Russia under the leadership of the intellectual Plekhanov. It was made up of these idealistic revolutionaries who mostly lived in exile after getting into trouble with the police within Russia. Lenin came to this congress in Belgium with an idea of the formation of this party burning in his mind. It's an interesting sidelight that the police in Brussels didn't like this gang of revolutionaries in their fair city, so they expelled them and they went across to London, England, which has been the historic haven of refugees. Lenin split this Congress with his motion that the party of the Marxists, the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, should be a disciplined party, a small party, a party of professional revolutionaries, a party that could be tightly controlled. And he wanted to keep the numbers small and make it a party of the elite. His opponents thought he was too rigid in this, and they preferred the party to be a little more flexible. When the matter came to a vote, Lenin secured a majority vote for his point of view, at least in one of the votes. The Russian word for majority is akin to Bolshevik, and so the party of Lenin became known as the Bolshevik segment, or the majority segment, of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, or the Bolsheviks. The Russian word for minority is akin to Menshevik, and so the opponents of Lenin, led by a man called Martov, became known as the minority group of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, known as the Mensheviks. Lenin just had a tiny handful supporting him at this Congress in 1903. The figure has variously been given as from 17 to 25. And so the Bolshevik segment of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party was a tiny fragment of humanity at its birth in 1903. And yet that is the seed from which the entire world communist movement has grown. The split between the Bolsheviks and Mensheviks grew and developed between 1903 and 1917. In 1917, February 1917, the Russian Revolution broke out. Russia was in the throes of the First World War. Tsarist authority was overthrown. A provisional government was established with the objective of setting up a constitutional democratic republic. Lenin returned in April 1917, and he renamed the Bolshevik segment of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party the Communist Party of Russia, Bolshevik. And it is from that small party of 1917 that the world communist movement today has grown. And its triumph has been largely due to the organization, the efficiency, the discipline of this small party which Lenin created. The concept of the Communist Party is that it should be a party of the elite, not a party of the masses. The vanguard of the proletariat, they call it. Small, disciplined, but just as the body has got one set of cells set aside called the brain who control the entire body, so the Communist Party were the members of the proletariat set aside to control the entire proletariat. The strange thing about it is, of course, that overwhelmingly the members of the Communist Party were not members of the proletariat. They were not members of the working class. They were middle-class intellectuals. Their background was bourgeois, and one of the strange things about communism has been that the working class as a whole has been contemptuous of communism from its inception, and the leadership has almost invariably come from the intellectual classes, most of them recruited as students. However, they claim to be proletarians. And this concept of a small party with a single mind, a single will, that can advance as one, retreat as one, that can go underground, that can emerge, was the party which Lenin created. The form of organization established for this party received the name Democratic Centralism. So every communist party throughout the world is organized in accordance with the so-called principles of democratic centralism. The organization is something like this. At the community level, a small communist group is formed. It may be a group that meets in a home, in a neighborhood, in a school, in a factory, or even in a church. This is the basic unit of the Communist Party. It may be called the cell, or it may be called the club. A number of these units are controlled by a district council, and each unit elects their representative to the district council. The important thing about their representative is this: he cannot be instructed how he will vote on a given proposition by the group that elects him. He must be totally uninstructed. The district council meets, it discusses a problem, a vote is taken, and the majority vote prevails. Before this vote is taken, open debate is theoretically encouraged. Once the vote is taken, it becomes unanimously binding on every member of that committee. and as a united group they go back to their units which elected them to give them the decision of the higher committee. So actually the democratic part is that you elect your representative to bring you back your orders from the higher committee. This process continues throughout the structure of the Communist Party. The district committees elect representatives to, say, a county-wide committee. Decisions made at the county-wide committee are unanimously binding on every member of that committee and unanimously binding everywhere below it. This structure continues until the final committee or the central committee is reached. Theoretically, this is the final authority, but since a large committee needs an executive, there is invariably an executive of the central committee which is in practically constant session. It used to be called the Politburo. In Russia it's now called the Presidium. And this is the final authority. And in practice it means that decisions reached at the Presidium are unanimously binding on every member of the Presidium. Then they go down to the Central Committee, tell the decision to the Central Committee passes it unanimously. From the Central Committee, they go down to the next committee level. So finally, the decision of the Politburo, or the executive of the Central Committee, is binding on every loyal Communist Party member. Almost certainly, by the nature of the process, one man emerges in dominant control of this executive, and so finally communism produces the dictatorship of one man. So communism operates through personal dictatorship, Joseph Stalin, or the oligarchy, the dictatorship of the few, what they call collective leadership within the Communist Party. But the Communist Party has been the agency of revolution and dictatorship which has been responsible for so much of the progress that communism has made throughout the world. This organizational form is of course not unique and has been copied by others. Hitler, for example, copied it when he formed the Nazi Party. Mussolini copied it when he formed the Fascist Party of Italy. But basically, it is the Leninist idea of the disciplined party which today operates in every country throughout the world. If you desire a printed copy of these messages, write to Dr. Fred Schwarz, Post Office Box 890, Long Beach, California, zip code 90801.